How would you interpret Xi Jinping's speech? And with respect to India, are we looking at far more greater turmoil and tumultuous times, or is it going to be that which will be transactional?
I think there is, as you also mentioned, there is continuity in his approach, specifically on the foreign policy front. The focus is going to be on security, but with India, I feel that the relations are not going to be normalized. It's, of course, already not business as usual. But I think this is what we are also going to see, because the new normal was already established when Xi Jinping first came to power. And I believe for him to acquire the third term would mean that China will be more assertive and bold in its approach, and India has been one of the major victims of China's aggression. So I believe the relations are only going to go downhill after she secures the third term. And I think India needs to brave itself for more problems with China in times to come.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that, Sana Hashmi? Why should there be more problems? And what kind of problems?
I think it's because this is what was established, and this is one of the USPs of Xi's term. And at home, China and Xi Jinping, it has been established as a bold and confident country that's standing up to the bullies. And India being a part of the quadrilateral dialogue, and with India-US partnership, I believe India is also being seen as an adversary. So I think on the border, India has to prepare itself for more problems, and generally as well. So I don't think India is getting any China's accommodative behavior, going to see China's accommodative behavior at the border. So I think India has to be firm with its approach, and India needs to prepare itself that it has to have more problems. It has to have more standoffs with China.
Dr. Roger Liu, he is very, very strongly worded on Taiwan, where he is committed to reunification. He's also said we will not stop or reconsider or give up the use of force. Largely, everybody thought that China wanted to win Taiwan or annex Taiwan without firing a single bullet or a single missile. It's just the psychological pressure built up. How would you read the speech?
I think specifically on...
question to Dr. Roger Liu, Sanaji. Yeah.
If we look at the text itself, you will find that actually it's quite similar to what he has said before. He do not rule out the option of using force, but the Chinese side will resort as most likely to peace. This is the main theme and the main tune of the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda machine. But what has changed for the past few years is that actually the PLA, after the reorganization after the end of 2016, it has become much stronger. And for the past few decades, they have been emulating their biggest enemy. And also, the PLA is the biggest fan of the U.S. armed forces. So they are trying to adopt the U.S. strategy and tactics. But, according to a lot of experts in military affairs, the PLA now has the ability to deny the U.S. rescuing forces for Taiwan in the years to come. So what has changed is the balance of the military power between the Taiwan Strait has changed. And what is worse is that the gap between the U.S. and China has been narrowing down. So I think this is the major difference that we are seeing here. And Xi Jinping has been, now we are entering a danger zone because Xi Jinping now has entered his third term. And he has broken this kind of convention that each generation lasts for only 10 years. So he gave his enemies within the party the biggest reason or the legitimacy to unite against him. So for the coming 5 years, whatever he has been doing, whatever he has been done wrong, will be the target of the enemy within the party, and they will use this to mobilize the other factions within the party to attack him. And to respond to that, a war becomes a very convenient tool in his toolbox. What kind of war? Well, for Taiwan, it has ultimate legitimacy within the hearts and minds of the CCP party members, because they have been claiming that Taiwan to be part of China. This is the first thing. And second thing is India. What Sana has just mentioned is that I think for the Chinese, in the Chinese mindset, India is an easy target because we have been trying to, India for the past few years, we have been trying to show our friendship to them. Like if we should respect each other, we should take care of each other's sensitivity, respect, and mutual interest. And the Chinese know us. They say, well, whatever we do, you will come back for us. So we will be hard on you, and whatever happens, India will come back to us. So I think we have to change our mindset on this.
That is a big ask, Sushant Sareen. That is not going to be easy because despite Galwan, despite our banning a lot of their apps, etc., India's imports from China have been at an all-time high. We may have tried to reduce our dependence as far as critical drug or the base drug is concerned, and we've from 70% we brought it down back to about 52% and further down. But as far as the pharmaceutical ingredient is concerned, but overall, we've not reduced our dependence. We have actually increased our import bill from them.
So, Anand, one, I think the mindset in India has changed. It has been changing for some time, but I think after 2020, it has changed irretrievably. Now, just because you talk softly does not mean that you will not carry the big stick. And I don't see, it's one thing to, engage into that Punjabi kind of rhetoric with the Pakistanis because that's the language they understand.
Right.
But quite another on how you are dealing with China. So yeah, you will speak nicely to them, you will speak softly, you will keep the doors of diplomacy open. But have we lowered our defenses along the borders? I don't think so. In fact, if anything, we have strengthened our borders, we have strengthened our defenses. If you look at the kind of mobilization and the force arrangement along the borders, it's pretty impressive. And this is all along the borders, number one. Number two, the kind of infrastructure we are building. Number three, the kind of, I won't call it alliances, but the kind of networks, if you will. Even that's not a very correct word, but we are engaging with many of the other countries, the Quad being one example. And I think that does indicate the direction which India is moving. On the issue of decoupling, I could not agree more with you that yes, we need to decouple ourselves economically from China, and the faster the better. But I suppose it's one thing to talk about it and quite another to do it. I think a lot of effort has been made, is being made, but I think it will take time because for over 2 decades, we have decided to outsource all our manufacturing to China. Even Indian companies thought it more profitable to get stuff manufactured in China and import it into India and sell it under their brand name.
Yes.
Because many Chinese brands don't sell very well in India, because of quality concerns and others. But many Indian companies were doing it. Now we need to move that manufacturing back to India. We need to make it more competitive. And that, I think, steps are being taken in that direction. Are they being taken fast enough? Perhaps not. And I think there's a lot more we need to do, but I think we are getting there. But it's not just us, Anand, who has to decouple from China. I think you are seeing efforts at decoupling happening in the West as well. Whether it's the US, whether it's Australia, whether it's Japan, whether it's the European countries, efforts are underway to start decoupling. And that is why manufacturing is moving out of China and moving into countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, India, many other countries. And I think that is something which is going to have an impact going forward. Does this mean that this will change the Chinese calculus? Perhaps I would go along with both my esteemed colleague Sana, and it's good to see her on Indian television after having followed her on Twitter for quite some time, and Dr. Lu. I think what they are saying is correct. Xi Jinping might be the strongest at this point in time in his career. Right. But I think once you reach the apex of your power, then it's only a slippery slope down. He's not going to go out retire. He's going to go out in ignominy. Now, whether that ignominy comes because he fights a war which he cannot win, or it comes because his rivals within the Communist Party overthrow him and gang up against him, it's very difficult to say what that what will bring about that fall. But I think nobody lasts forever, and neither will he.
No, whether nobody lasts forever or not, the next 5 years he is going to be there. And Andrew K.P. Leung, does he want India on his side, especially when he's trying to change the new global order? When China is trying to say that they want to replace America as the next big hegemony? And of course, when we are seeing a region full of turmoil, he may have blown up or amped up Taiwan to try and build up sentiment internally, because that's what helps you, especially if you have a lot of detractors within. But going forward, can he continue to be expansionist in his designs? Can he continue to try and salami slice into Indian territory and hope India will continue to be an able ally?
Well, if you read his 2-hour speech carefully, the vast majority of his speech is focusing China's internal challenges. In spite of the fact, of course, he has recapped the achievements under his tutelage. The GDP per capita has doubled during the past 10 years, and China's contribution to world growth is something reaching something like 38%, more than all the G7 countries combined. But having said that, I mean, he admits that there are huge problems within China in this new area of global change, including, for example, the continuing problem of corruption and the mantra that he's using corruption just to do down his enemy is really a travesty of the whole truth. But having said that, he also underlines that China's wish is not just to exceed any other country or supplant any country. Of course, he admits that all countries, big or small, has their own individual interests at heart. India would defend its own interests, China would defend its own interests. And nowhere in the speech you find that he's being antagonistic against India. And in fact, there are areas of common interest between China and India. And look at even the approach to the Ukraine war. Both countries are not playing by Americans' playbook all the time. So I think that what President Xi highlights is a world in which there is no longer any unipolar version of how to govern a country or how what kind of model should be practiced by all countries regardless. So each country should look after itself and try to bring better lives for its people. And in fact, a large proportion of his speech is devoting how to improve the lives of the Chinese people, both economically and culturally and environmentally. So I think that this is a lot of misreading of China. And the biggest misreading, of course, is in the West, in the national security white paper that's just been published in the United States. Each and every page, 48 pages in all, China is painted as an existential threat. But as President Xi was trying to say, that China is not the main interest. It's not to exceed any other country. Is to bring China better lives to its people and to bring China to a higher level of development.
No, but bringing better lives for its people or for whoever who are loyal to the Communist Party and the PLA cannot be at the cost of India's sovereignty and India's interests. And this is where the bigger question is, that is China going to act in its own interests at the cost of India? Yes, there may be a point of view as far as the US hegemony is concerned and the US narrative is concerned. And that's why, Andrew K.P. Leung, I'm not looking at what America is saying. I'm looking at it purely from what is going to be India's view and India's worldview. And we are the nations who are neighbors. America is halfway across the globe. It may be trying to assert its influence here. But what are the equations that India and China are going to have with each other? Because so far China looked at India as dispensable, not even as a worthy adversary. It looked at it as India as a weak nation with a huge amount of population but no ability. But that's all changing. And if India is asserting itself, then will China look at it as an opportunity or as a problem? And therein lies the difference, Roger Liu.
Well, if India is becoming more assertive, will China view this as opportunity or a threat? Well, I would say that, China has been trying to play the world politics as a chessboard. And they have been playing a lot of chess around us, India. Well, we should look beyond the LAC. The LAC is just one of the battlefields or the battlefronts that we are facing along with China. What is more important is around us. The IOR, the Indian Ocean region, our neighbor countries, including Bhutan, including Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Pakistan. And China has been trying very best, using any chance that we have lost to infiltrate, to consolidate their support with our neighboring countries and offer them opportunities to counter against us. Well, from the perspective of these smaller countries, of course, these are chances. But when Chinese are talking about respect, the mutual, sensitivities and interest, and all the other territorial coherence, well, do they think about India in this way? Well, they will not. When they try to expand their influence to India, or the Indian Ocean region, they will do that. In 2018, they have passed out this, what they call the olive branch to India, saying that we should work together in Afghanistan. All right, and we say, well, Afghanistan affairs should be dealt with in a multilateral, basis, and we should not. China and India. The total idea that China has been offering India is China-India plus one, which gives an open door for Chinese hand to, to touch upon what should be the Indian core interest in the area. And they thought this is like a friendly gesture. This is not. If India has been doing the same thing, like we will sail to Taiwan Strait as many times as we want. We want to extend our influence to South China Sea, and we are going to do constantly scientific research over there. See what the Chinese will respond to that. They will send out a warship to drive us away. So I think there is a discrepancy here, the strategic perspective that India and China India should especially think about when they are facing the Chinese offensive.
But